Hello, and welcome to IMA's Inside Talk Career Connection webinar series. The title of today's presentation is LinkedIn Like You've Never Leveraged It. I'm Terry Mormile, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. I want to start off by covering a couple of reminders before we get started. Please use the Q&A window on the right side of your screen to send questions to the presenter or to request technical assistance. Keep in mind that refreshing your browser will correct most connection issues. In order to earn CPE credit today, you must participate completely in the live webinar by logging in on time and responding to the poll questions. At this time, I would like to introduce our featured presenter for today's program. With us today, we have Daniel Alfon. Daniel Alfon, www.danielalfon.com, is an international speaker and author of Build a LinkedIn Profile for Business Success. You can learn more about Daniel in the speaker bio section of your console. Please join me in welcoming Daniel.
Terry, thank you very much, and I'm glad to be part of the IMA family. In the next 55 minutes, we'll try to answer two questions. Question number one, how do we best leverage the LinkedIn platform? And question number two, what's the best way to optimize our profiles?
Thank you. Before turning it over to Daniel, I would like to go over the learning objective for today's program. After participating in this webinar, you will be able to identify why and how LinkedIn differs from other job boards. You should also be able to explain how to build a compelling LinkedIn profile that screams, needs to be interviewed. You will be able to state the one question you must answer. And lastly, you should be able to describe ways to enable hiring companies to effortlessly contact you and easily define next steps. We're looking forward to an informative presentation. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Daniel to begin.
Thank you very much, Terry. This is our agenda. We'll start by mentioning the jobs briefly. We'll ask the one question I suggest you ask yourself before logging into LinkedIn, and then we'll dive into the core of today's presentation, different ways to optimize your profile. We'll go over 5 different ways to optimize your profile, and we'll conclude today's webinar with a simple call to action that you can perform after this call. The reason I'm here is that I've done all the possible mistakes on LinkedIn. I've been on LinkedIn since 2004, and I'll try to highlight a few important lessons that my clients and I have learned. We'll start, with your permission, with the jobs. Many people come for LinkedIn for the jobs. I'll show a number of examples. It could be for a senior financial analyst, it could be for a senior accountant, or anything else. Later on, I'll share my screen and we'll go over the LinkedIn platform to see how those jobs, where to find those jobs. But if you only logging into LinkedIn for the jobs, you need to be aware of the fact that you only leverage 10% of the LinkedIn capacity. Most of the value does not come from the job boards. What do I mean by that? There are many other job boards out there who may arguably make a better job of showing you or serving you the sort of position you would like to be interested in. However, none of them can perform for you what LinkedIn can perform. And that is that whenever you're leaving a company or whenever you're completing your studies, you can connect with people you know from that company. And later on, down the road, when you become a job seeker or when you'd like to switch places, LinkedIn enables you to accomplish 2 things. One is identify people you've worked with and see who works for your target employer. And 2, by using LinkedIn advanced searches, you can identify the hiring manager and bypass HR and all gatekeepers. This cannot be performed by any other job board. Put differently, you may join LinkedIn for the jobs, but you should stay for the company. the importance of your network by seeing someone you could report to in another company and seeing that you two share at least one mutual connection. That enables you to gain a meaningful introduction to the hiring manager. And this is the true power of LinkedIn. You could say that to leverage LinkedIn best, you take into account the job board aspect and you add on top of that your networking, people you've worked with, and down the road, these people will enable you to gain a meaningful introduction to a hiring manager in a company you'd like to work for. So since we mentioned jobs, I'd like to turn it over for you, Terry, to ask the first poll question.
Thank you. Please refresh your browser if you cannot see the question. I would like to remind everyone that you may begin responding to the question as it appears on your screen. Our first polling question today is, where are 90% of the jobs on LinkedIn? A, jobs in the top navigation bar. B, emails sent by LinkedIn. X corporation is looking for candidates like you. C, is the link in the LinkedIn Jobs app. D, elsewhere. Please be sure to click the submit button, which is located on the right side of your screen, just below the response options, so we can record your answer. I think everyone's pretty familiar with how to respond to our questions, and everyone's probably pretty familiar with LinkedIn, but I'm sure they're waiting to hear all the tips and tricks you have for them lined up today.
Thank you very much, Terry. I'll just mention very briefly, LinkedIn has close to 900 million users. And since we started this IMA call, hundreds of people have joined LinkedIn. Every second, 3 people sign up.
That's great. Now let's see if we can see the results of our poll.
Wow. Okay, so I know it looks like a very simple question, but the answer is not in the jobs, nor is it the emails that LinkedIn sends, nor is it the LinkedIn app. In other words, where we'll look for the job is usually not the right place. Let me share my screen and show you what I mean by that. Many of the jobs are in LinkedIn groups. Most of the jobs are in the LinkedIn groups. Why is that? Because what LinkedIn calls jobs is paid placements. In other words, when we look at a certain position, that means the company has paid LinkedIn in order for them to advertise the job for 1 month. I'm going to share my screen and show a number of examples. So this is one example for a senior accountant. Notice you can play and customize the lower navigation bar. You can arrange it by time or experience level or full-time, whether it's you can easily apply, and even to see if it's a remote or hybrid position. I'll show another example in the UK, since we have IMA members all over the world, auditors in the UK or in India, controllers. You can tweak and change everything here. I'll show one example. You can obviously change the US to your metro area. You can change it to Boston, Massachusetts. You can change it to Newark, New Jersey. You can change it to Miami, Florida, or Los Angeles, California. This is where many jobs are, in the group section. What I'll show you how to access those groups. We'll run a very simple search. I'll just enter 1 or 2 terms in the search bar. And I'll start by entering the term finance. I ignore the autocomplete that LinkedIn shows me. And lo and behold, in the navigation bar that appears, I suddenly see a possibility to select only the groups. When clicking on the groups, I see thousands of groups. In each of those groups, I can probably find dozens, if not hundreds, of positions that could be interesting for me. I'm going to stop my screen share and get back to the presentation. And you should see now the way to access those groups. Step number 1, we enter a search in the top navigation bar on the LinkedIn homepage on desktop. Finance or any other term. You may also want to add either the region, the state, the country, or the city you're in, and that will further limit the number of results you see. However, when you start entering a term, I suggest you ignore the autocomplete that LinkedIn shows you and you hit enter or search. And only then will you be able to see the lower navigation bar, and there you can select the group function. Most of the jobs on LinkedIn are not in the job section, they're actually elsewhere. Why is that? Because any LinkedIn member can go to a group and share that they're hiring. There's no cost associated with that. So you'll find a lot more jobs in the group section than you will find in the job sections. And what the emails that LinkedIn sends you, or the jobs that you see in the LinkedIn app, probably only represent 10% of the jobs on LinkedIn. So lesson number one, if you're looking for a job, jobs is not necessarily the best location to find those jobs. This has been the very beginning. I'd like to switch gears and move to a very important question. And this, I'd like to draw your attention to this graphic. And let's mention both axes. The x-axis, the horizontal one, shows us the number of connections you have. So when we signed up, we started over here. And if we accepted or sent invitations request, and we have 20 or 200 or 2,000 connections, we moved further to the right. However, the important axis is the other axis, the vertical one, where you answer the questions that the viewer has about your skill set. If you provide no information, you're in the lower quadrant. If you provide information, and we'll touch on that in a second, then you're in the higher quadrant. Please take a look at the number of quadrants here, and I'll ask you another question, and I'd like to get some answers in the attendee chat. So we want to get to number 4. The quadrant number 4 has 2 benefits. One is exposure, and the second is conversion. Anyone visiting our profile is able to see what we bring to the table, and many people can see it. So this is the attendee chat. And now I'm going to ask you a question. Try to imagine that we only had 2 ways to get to number 4. One way would be to go right, add more connections, and then worry about our profile. Option number 2 would be to go up, optimize our profile, and only then worry about connections. So this is my question to you. What do you think is the best way to get to number 4? Is it to go up or is it to go right? Please use the attendee chat to provide your answer, right or up. Thank you, Grant. Okay, great. Wow. I was told that the AMA members were brilliant, and I think all of you are right. We have to go up first. We have to optimize our profile. Let me ask a different question. Do you think you really moved up? Let's stop with the answers. You got it right. My next question is a bit more embarrassing. Have we actually moved up? Or could it be that some LinkedIn mechanisms showed us that we needed to grow our network before optimizing our profile? Do you think that all of us, thank you for the frank answers. Many of us, now we understand we need to optimize our profile, but what happens usually is that often we worry about our network. What is this? Why is that important? Just imagine I would buy the top Google result for IMA, and then the number one result would be a page that is under construction. That doesn't make sense. In fact, the moment to optimize or to promote our profile should be only once it has been optimized. So the takeaway from this graphic is to stop worrying about your connections and start worrying about your profile. And we'll mention the specific action I suggest you take in this slide. What could be or what should be the objective of your LinkedIn profile, whether you're looking for a new position today or you may be looking for other opportunities later on. What, in your opinion, should be the objective of your LinkedIn profile? Terry, I'd like to switch over to you with poll number 2. I'm sorry, one sec.
Yep.
Yes, sorry.
Okay. Thank you. Attendees should see the second polling question now open on your screen. If you cannot see the polling question, please refresh your browser, which should correct the issue. I'd like to remind everyone that you can answer the question as soon as you see it on the screen. Our second polling question today is, what is the most performed action on LinkedIn? A, sharing, liking, reading the feed. B, searching. C, viewing other people's profiles. D, connecting. Don't forget to click the submit button when you're finished on the right side of the screen so we can record your option. Okay.
Thank you, Terry. The question again is, according to LinkedIn statistics, what is the action that most of LinkedIn's users perform on a daily basis? If you had to pick one, which one would you guess? Wow. Okay, so this is more evenly split. It may come as a surprise, but according to LinkedIn statistics, the one action that most LinkedIn users perform the most is viewing other people's profiles. This is one major difference between the LinkedIn platform and most other channels out there. When you use any other social media, usually we come for the content. But on LinkedIn, it's different. Whenever people Google you, your LinkedIn profile will often top the results. And they would look you up when you submit your CV, when you're hired, when you become a manager in a new company, and every other action is often linked to viewing your profile. If you extend an invitation request, people can check your profile. When people perform a search for a candidate, for example, they're able to check you out and visit your profile. This is the reason we need to focus on improving your profile or optimizing your profile. Forget about what other channels help you achieve and focus on the LinkedIn specifics, which means improving your profile. I'd like to show this funnel. And at the top of the funnel is your next hiring manager. And our job, from my perspective, is to help those people go to the bottom of the funnel. What do I mean by going to the bottom of the funnel? They need to be able to find you easily. You have to insert the right keywords. We'll mention that in a few minutes. What they see within the first 5 seconds, is your profile photo and the banner and the headline. We'll see how to optimize those. When the viewer scrolls down, they get usually to see your experience section and maybe featured media. At the very bottom, they may be able to decide that they want to reach out to you. And the last section is performing the fact that they reach out to you and they succeed in reaching out to you. This is where we turn into ways to optimize your profile. And as I mentioned, we'll go over 5 different ways to optimize your profile. Number 1 is to read. When you know the sort of position you would be looking for, say a senior financial analyst or a senior accountant, my advice would be for you to run a simple search and visit as many profiles as you can, dozens of people who do the position you would be interested in now. What will happen when you see 20 or 40 such profiles? You'll see all sorts of ideas. People with your skill set showing or highlighting their skills in different types. Some of them will be good ideas. Some of them you would not want to copy. Once you see something interesting, you'll see that someone has uploaded a banner or has added a section that you were not aware of. Then you thank that person and you go to your profile and you change it and you tweak it to serve you. In other words, you just don't copy that section, but you change it to suit your own unique style. So suggestion number 1, read profiles of other people on LinkedIn who perform the sort of position you would be interested in. Suggestion number 2 relates to the importance of your profile photo and your headline. Here is my suggestion about your LinkedIn profile photo. Use a headshot, so whenever you're on a Zoom call or in the lobby of your next hiring manager, people should be able to recognize you. Try to dress like you would dress for work, because LinkedIn users, when they log into LinkedIn, they're either in their office or they're in the work environment. Their state of mind is work. This is not a place to highlight your European vacation. Try to avoid having other people in your profile photo. This is not a place for your loved ones, your children, your spouse. This is the way for you to show your professionalism. And remember that your profile photo needs to be visible by all LinkedIn members. I'm going to throw one more statistic. LinkedIn members with a profile photo get as many as 24 more views than people with no profile photo. In fact, IMA members, I need a volunteer. So if you'd like us to visit your profile live in a few minutes and see whether your profile photo is visible to all and maybe do something else, please use the audience chat and drop a link to your LinkedIn profile. And with your permission, I'll try to visit at least one of them in a few minutes. Again, the same attendee chat that you used, kindly drop a link to your LinkedIn profile if you're okay with us visiting your LinkedIn profile and showing you something. Let's move on. We have 5 ways to optimize your profile, and we've discussed so far 1, reading other people's profile, and 2, the importance of your LinkedIn profile photo. Next, I'd like to draw your attention to the most important real estate on your profile. And the most important real estate on your profile is your profile headline. On my website, there's a whole free download with before and after formula and examples, but the essence is this. Your profile headline, that is just next to your name, should demonstrate your value and not be just a job title. In some cases, your job title records what you're doing now, but you may want to look for something else. Moreover, an ideal profile headline should make your target audience stop whatever it is they're doing and be interested in checking you out. Something else I would like you to take into account is that your profile headline, the shorter it is, the better it is. Some people will see it in the profile, in the other people's viewed, and if you have more than one line, they will find it difficult to read. Ideally, your profile headline should be short, demonstrate your value, and not be just a job description. So we've covered the second point, the importance of your profile, photo, and your headline. If you have to take just one thing from today's webinar, it's the sentence I'd like to say next. Now that I've got your attention, here it is. The best way to help anyone visiting LinkedIn to be able to identify you as a solution to their problem and reach out to you is to open your LinkedIn profile on the same device you're working on, preferably desktop. Open the latest version of your resume or CV, and hear me out, copy every single word that is important enough to be featured in your resume or CV into the relevant experience section in your profile. Let that sink in. If you think that readers will reach out to you and say, this sounds interesting, I would like you to submit your CV, I'm afraid that sounds like a Disney movies from the 1940s. No one will do that. Whenever people run a search and they can't find the answer based on your profile, they will simply move elsewhere. They may look at someone else, maybe someone that's less talented than you, maybe someone that's not an IMI member, but they will answer their questions. And whenever you can, you should try to add links and visual media to your profile. We're highlighting 5 different ways to optimize your profile. We mentioned the reading other people's profile, and we also mentioned the importance of your profile photo and the headline. We've just concluded point 3, and that is copying or pasting every single word that was important enough to be featured in your resume into your LinkedIn profile. This is the one question I would like you to consider. Based only on your profile, do I understand that I need to interview you? Again, if I only visit your profile, does it scream that I need to interview you? Terry, I'd like you to take over because we're reaching poll number 3.
Thanks, Daniel. Attendees should see the third polling question now open on your screen. If you cannot see it, please refresh your browser. Our third polling question today is, what should be the objective of your LinkedIn presence? A, to get as many views as possible. B, to make recruiters ask for my CV or resume. C, to make companies and hiring managers interview me. Please be sure to click the submit button, which is located on the right side of your screen, just below the response option, so we can record your answer.
Terry, thank you very much. I think the IMA attendees answer faster and faster.
I think our audience knows the drill.
Wow. I'm speechless. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, the answer we have here with the 67% for me is what I came for. Let me try and explain why. First of all, there are many objectives, okay? It's not that there's a right answer here. However, this is my suggestion for you to consider as your objective for LinkedIn. To me, the objective of your LinkedIn profile is not to make hiring companies ask for your CV, but it's to make hiring companies contact you for an interview. I'll say this differently. If you've built a good LinkedIn profile, your CV becomes redundant. If your profile answers the questions hiring managers have, then they no longer need to reach out to you and ask for your CV. They will be able to understand whether they want to reach out to you and schedule an interview. So attending this IMA webinar enables you to gain a competitive advantage by switching the way you consider your LinkedIn profile from a backup to an appealing visual element that people can find and reach out to you when you're looking for a job and when you're happily employed. The essence of your objective is up to you. And if you decide you want to make your profile help people understand that they need to reach out to you, all it takes is your decision and a couple of questions. You don't need to pay LinkedIn. You don't need to pay LinkedIn to perform any action we mentioned now. With your permission, I'd like to get to point number 4. And here is point number 4. Often, when we think about our LinkedIn presence, we look at our own profile and we ask ourselves, do people see this in the same way? And what I suggest is that you remember that what we see on our profile is less important. What other people see when they visit your profile is more important. Now, I'd like to share my screen and we're going to run through an experiment here. I'm going to visit a profile here and say, I'm the hiring manager and I could be interested into reaching out to Stacy. Please refrain from adding any information to the attendee list. I'm sharing the link to Stacy's profile in the attendee chat. Kindly look at the link, go to Stacy's profile. You see the word message. And now I'd like to turn over to you, Terry, with the next poll.
Thank you. Okay. Attendees should see the 4th polling question now open on your screen. Oops. And if you cannot see it, please refresh your browser, which should correct the issue. Our 4th polling question today is, what happens when you click on the message button on a non-connections profile? A, I can't see it. B, a new free message is open. C, what? LinkedIn asked me to try/activate premium or pay. Please be sure to click the submit button on the bottom so we can record your answer to this. And let's see what our audience thinks about this once we get.
Barry, thank you very much. I'm sharing again the link in the attendee chat. Please refrain from adding anything else to the attendee chat and try to message Stacy and then answer the poll, please. Can you see the poll?
They had to work for this.
Yeah, I know it's challenging, but if someone can do it, it's the IMA members. Now you should see the polling question. What happens when you click on the message button in Stacy's profile?
give people a little more time on this
Sure.
one.
If you're not sure, skip this. But if you are able to visit Stacy's profile and click on the word message and see the poll, kindly submit your answer. I appreciate your answers. I would like your answers to be part of the poll.
Okay. Looks like we have most of our audience who've responded.
Ooh, excellent. So this is what happens. We all wanted to message Tracy and basically say, Tracy, I would like to interview. Are you available next Wednesday? However, some of us have found this difficult. LinkedIn will often show us a premium badge asking us to pay to play. And if you pay attention to what happens when you click on the word message, even if LinkedIn opens a new message, it often says activate premium or this will become a trial. Why is this? Because most of us are not connected to Tracy. It's not Stacy's fault. It's the fact that LinkedIn wants us to become premium users and lets us try to fix this. If you want to become more accessible, you need to understand this. Most LinkedIn members will not be able to message you for free. I'll say that again. 99% of LinkedIn members will not be able to click on message and message you. And when they click on contact info, they will not see your email. What can be done in order to change this? You can simply click on this link and see the result that you have. For many of us, you will see only our connections. What does that mean? If you have 40 connections, those 40 people can happily message you. If you have 2,000, then other than these 2,000 people, most people will not be able to message you for free. My suggestion is to turn it to anyone on LinkedIn, and you can always switch it back. We're almost finishing the 5 points to optimize your profile. The fourth point has been all about access or visibility in order to help people visit your profile and be able to message you. If you remember the funnel I showed you a couple of minutes ago, at the bottom of the funnel, I said people may want to reach out to you. And there's an obstacle there because some of them will not easily message you. In fact, most of them will not easily message you. So let's go to point number 5, the last one. And this is about search. Billions of searches are being performed on the LinkedIn platform. There's a whole section of LinkedIn search engine optimization. When someone is looking for a senior accountant, you're probably one of the results they see. In the next 3 minutes, I'll try to show you a simple process to maximize your chances of becoming number 1 in the very first page. It all starts with your dream job. If you have a description that suits your ideal position, then I suggest you open that position. It could be on LinkedIn, it could be on Indeed, anywhere you'd like. And then you grab a notebook or a spreadsheet and you enter 25 terms that you found in that position. Again, step number 1, you find a job description that suits you and you write down 20 to 25 terms that are general and could be interesting for other companies to use. And I suggest you do this for 3 positions. That will enable you to have a bank of 60 to 75 terms. Only now do we visit your LinkedIn profile and we look for the terms. And this is the important element I'd like you to remember. Whenever someone runs a LinkedIn search, they're able to find that search wherever it was on your LinkedIn profile, from your headline to the experience section, even the skills. So don't worry about the exact position. Try to ask yourself, where is the most natural term for me to use that word somewhere on my profile? It could be a previous position. It could be the syllabus of a CMA certification. It could be something else. Think keywords. One of the best ways for you to find those job descriptions is to head to ima.net and there to go to the Career Center. This is just an example of terms or keywords you can find. Obviously, if you're looking for a senior accountant position, you'll look for something else. But what we do is identify 20 or 25 terms from that job description. And what will happen when we visit our profile? My guess is you will find many of the terms, but not all of those terms. So we stop and we say, okay, what terms would I like to be on my profile? And what's the best location for me to weave that term into my profile? I'll mention it briefly again. Step number one, we find the job description and we extract or write down 20 to 25 terms. We do this for 3 positions. Now we head to a profile and we see which terms are somewhere in our profile and which terms are missing. Lastly, we focus on one term and we ask ourselves, where do we need to enter that term so people can find that term somewhere on our profile? Before we go to the next step, I'd like to remind us of the 5 ways to optimize our profile. This is what we've done for the last 20 minutes or so. Number 1, read. Read as many profiles as you can of people who do the sort of position you'd be interested in. 2, understand and optimize your profile photo and your headline. Number 3, copy and paste every single word from your CV into your LinkedIn profile. Number 4, make yourself available by changing the privacy settings so the email is visible to all LinkedIn members. And number 5, identify the right keywords and weave them into your profile. Now we should see a short video highlighting in the media player a demo done by 2 IMA volunteers. Let's try and see whether that works. Yes. So pay attention, please, to the media player. And what Kavya does is find a banner, click on the icon, select that banner, and apply it. And that means that the beautiful CMA banner shows up on Kavya's profile within seconds. You need to have the file on your device, on your desktop. Second element that Grail is doing is one of the most important things you need to do. Grail opens her CV, goes to her LinkedIn profile, scrolls down to the experience section, clicks on the pencil to the right, selects the latest position, the current position, and moves the cursor to the description, the beginning of the description. And there, she takes or copies the text from her CV or resume and pastes it into the relevant description in her LinkedIn profile in the experience section. And that, ladies and gentlemen, enables you within minutes to add important elements into your LinkedIn profile. If you perform this action, which shouldn't take you more than 10 minutes, most people will be able to find you and understand whether they need to reach out to you. I wanted to thank our volunteers, to thank Kavya, and to thank Braille for helping us have this video and have this demo. And this is also a good opportunity for me to thank Laura, who helped us with the volunteers, Adam, Margaret, and Terry. What now? What I suggest you do is ask yourself, what sort of position would you be looking for? Number one. Two, examine your LinkedIn profile. And three, ask yourself, if someone visited that profile, does it compel the hiring manager to reach out to me, yes or no? If the answer is yes, you're gold. If you're unsure, then optimize your profile like we've discussed in the 5 different ways. This is what I suggest we end with before we move to possible Q&A.
Okay, let's start the Q&A. Thank you, Daniel. Attendees should see the evaluation survey now open on your screen. If it didn't open, please click the evaluation survey icon on the bottom of your screen for access. We always appreciate your feedback, so please complete the survey while we address some of the audience questions. I know this webinar today was a little different than we've done in the past. We tried to have some volunteer videos embedded into it and have the audience participation using the audience chat. Hope that you enjoyed that aspect of it. Okay, we've got lots of questions, and Daniel, I'll start with one that people always ask about. When job hunting, should I add the open to work badge? Is that a good idea? What do you recommend?
Terry, thank you very much. My short answer is this. We'll only discuss this when you're not employed, because obviously when you're employed, this is not a smart move to highlight the fact that you're open to work. But Terry, even if you're unemployed, my recommendation for most people would not be to use the open to work badge. Why do I mention this? As I'm a member, you should not be only visible, you should be valuable. And by that, I mean, imagine I would visit your hometown and I would see a huge sign saying for rent. And I would visit you again in 6 months and I would see the same sign. What would I think of that property? What would I think about that? Many people will assume it's less attractive. Many people will assume it's less appealing, even though they haven't checked you out, they haven't read anything. So I understand that LinkedIn is here to help you find a job, but I would like our audience here to remember there are 2 types of people. Most people who don't know you are not asking themselves, who is the best senior accountant out there that is currently looking for a job? The questions they ask themselves, Terry, is who's the best senior accountant out there that could help us? The only people who are interested in the fact that we are job seekers are our friends. So my suggestion would be to network with people we've worked with and let them know that we're open for work and communicate them within the LinkedIn platform, or God forbid, leave the LinkedIn platform and message them and have coffee with them and get them on a phone call and say that you're looking for a position. But your profile, from my perspective, should not scream that you're an open job seeker, because your branding is going to be jeopardized and hurt.
Thank you. Good advice. Yes, always important to try to network and actually try to have a cup of coffee, whether in person or virtually, with someone, because that's how doors open. Great advice. A couple of people are asking about work experience. How far back should you go? Some people are more, have more work experience. They want to know, should you be going back past 20 years? Any recommendations there?
Excellent. I'll say this very, very simply. If you decided that your CV starts in 2005, then I recommend that your LinkedIn profile presence starts with 2005. In other words, ask yourself that question and decide when you'd like to start showing your experience. And if you decided that you limit the experience to an X amount of years, do the same thing on your LinkedIn profile. Remember, though, that LinkedIn will not show the whole text. People need to show more in order to see everything. So don't be afraid that people will see 6 pages. No one will see more than a page. But if you decided that your CV only shows the latest, say, X years, this would be my recommendation.
Thank you. Regarding recommendations, you know, the section on LinkedIn where you have recommendations from prior workers or colleagues, what is your advice on that? Is it important to have a lot?
Okay, so I think recommendations would be a great way for you to stand out. And actually one of the best times to ask for recommendation is when you're leaving a company. Because then the colleagues you've worked with will usually be more helpful. They would be able to write or draft a meaningful recommendation for you. And I think timing is important. Because Terry, imagine you worked with someone 3 years ago, and now they're asking for you for recommendation. 3 years ago, it would have been a piece of cake. You know, you worked with that person and you find it easy to draft something. So try to reach out to people who can recommend you on LinkedIn. And the way to do it, from my perspective, is outside of the LinkedIn platform. In other words, if I'd like to reach out to Jane Doe, I don't send her a LinkedIn recommendation request. I communicate with Jane Doe outside of the LinkedIn platform. I ask how she's been. I mention that I'm moving on to a new adventure. And I ask her whether she would feel comfortable writing a recommendation for me on LinkedIn. If Jane says yes, only then will I go and ask for her to recommend me on LinkedIn. And to answer the last bit, one strong recommendation is better than 3 half-baked or mediocre ones from my perspective.
That's great advice. And I'll just add one more thing. Don't forget to go back and thank the person that gave you that recommendation. Whether it be an email, a text, or even a written note, which, you know, people don't do a lot often these days, but that really, if it's really an important recommendation and someone you really value, you know, even a handwritten note is very nice. Okay. A couple of questions about scams and being worried about things on LinkedIn. How do you safeguard yourself from LinkedIn scams? How do you know, when you're contacted all the time, is it really legitimate? Any advice there?
There are scams on LinkedIn, just like on any other platform. Your logic and your common sense should not be deactivated when you log into LinkedIn. In other words, if you're unsure, either ask for clarifications or ignore it. And basically, my personal strategy is to connect with people I know well, so I have zero scam. But you should have a system. If your system is based on exposure and you want to have 40,000 connections, it would usually come with a certain amount of suspicious recommendations, business opportunities, princes from a certain place who want to message you or other things. LinkedIn is, however, the most serious and business-like platform out there. So you should not be unprofessional in the platform. Ignore those or ask for clarifications, and the amount of spam or suspicious requests you would get is probably lower than you would get on other platforms. Again, use your network as a gatekeeper.
Yes, good point. Be skeptical, but real and as you would with with any kind of phishing email that you may get or something. Okay. Now here's a question from the hiring manager's point of view for using LinkedIn. Do you have any advice there for hiring managers using LinkedIn, best practices, et cetera?
Excellent. I think one of the simplest suggestion I would have is to, when you're looking for a certain position, then share a post that you're hiring and add your own 2 cents to that. In other words, there may be an official job description, but if you know that what's important for you is the ability of that senior accountant, say, to be able to help you with X and Y, so mention it to your network. And you could also say, if you know someone personally who could fit that, please get in touch or please message me. You could mention the fact that you're open to get recommendations from people, but if someone recommends you a senior accountant, then they're putting their name on the line. And you're not doing this to get just a bunch of CVs. You get it to get few, but relevant, qualified candidates. So I would say, if you know someone personally who could do A, B, or C, please be in touch. That would limit the number of applications or CV you would get, but most people will only do it carefully and will only mention someone when they think, Terry, that person and you as a hiring manager could be a good match.
Great. Okay. Good advice there. We have time for one more question, and there's a lot of questions in the Q&A about groups. You mentioned groups earlier on. So just if you can share a little bit more about the best way to use groups and just your advice on using the groups feature in LinkedIn.
Cool. So it's a great question to end with. What I'll suggest is this. If you're not familiar with groups in general, I would limit the number of groups you would join to, say, anything between 5 and 10. And the size of the group and the location of the group is important. So I would run a search for one general term plus your metro area or state or region or country. And I would try to find 3 to 5 groups where the title is related to the position you would be looking for and the metro area is right. And you would find it that groups from anything between 3,000 and 10,000 are probably even more attractive than groups with 1 million members. There are groups on LinkedIn with more than 1 million members. However, those groups attract all sorts of, you mentioned scammed earlier, all sorts of shares that are not necessarily relevant for you. But finding the groups with 2,000, 5,000 people, 10,000 people would show you few jobs, but many of them would be relevant. So instead of trying to look for next shiny object with 500,000 people and 500 jobs, 499 out of them would be irrelevant. Try to look for the groups where most positions would be relevant and attractive from your personal perspective.
Thank you, Daniel. Great way to end. There's so many questions that our audience has written in. I'm sorry we don't have time to get to everything, but just want to thank you again for sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. We appreciate that you've made time for us and our IMA audience.
It's been a pleasure to be with you, and I wanted to thank you all. And if you take from this webinar questions about your use of LinkedIn, then I'm happy. You don't need to trust my answers. Just ask yourself the questions you like to ask, and from there, you will grow. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the best success possible in the world.
Thank you, everyone, for participating. If you've met the requirements for CPE credit, you can access or save the certificate of completion by selecting the CPE icon on the bottom of your console before the webinar concludes, or select the CPE credit link on the right side of your post-event thank you email that you'll receive later today. Finally, your CPE credit will be automatically entered into your member transcript. I look forward to spending more time with you again when we'll enjoy some more inside talk. Thank you.